One of the biggest news in Metaverse for 2023 was when Microsoft shut down AltSpace VR. AltSpace VR was our original campus for VR Church. It's where this whole journey started. And we were pretty bummed when it shut down. We kind of saw the writing on the wall. And then people were asked, what is our next move? Well, it was something we've had on our sites for a long time, and that is called Rec Room, the dark horse of the metaverse. We'll be right back.
I'ma get it how I wanna get it, you don't get it. I can do anything, I don't got a limit. I'ma make my mind up, I'm committed. It might take some time, might take a minute. I won't give up, I don't give in a shit. I do what I want when I wanna do it. Call it a power or call it a gift. I call it persistence or driving some wit.
Welcome to the Future of the Church is the Metaverse podcast. My name is DJ Soto, one of the leaders at VR MMO Church, and I'm with Alice from the UK as well as Coldest from Spain, and I want to welcome them to the podcast as they help me host. What's up, everybody? Alice, Coldest, what's good? Alice, what's going on in your part of the world?
It's a bright and sunny Sunday afternoon, and not much is going on this afternoon. It's always a bit quiet between this time, so great time to do a podcast.
Oh, awesome. And you're going to be coming over the pond very soon. You got to have a little trip to Canada for some art. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yes, yeah, the arts university there, they've offered me a 4-week placement type thing over there with some projects.
Wow. First time in the North America.
Yes, yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. And Coldest, what's going on in Spain? How are things? How's the weather? How's the food?
The food is great as always, way better than in the UK or in the US also.
And would you like to fight that? Would you want to fight
that? Yeah, every day I do.
I had Marmite on toast this morning and it was splendid.
Oh, did you have it with tea? Did you have tea
I did
today?
have a cup of tea actually.
Of course you did, DJ.
That's amazing. Well, today's episode is about VR Church's new church and also not new church in Rec Room. And we talked about in the intro where for the longest time we've been in AltSpace, we've been in VR Chat. At one point we were in Rec Room, and some of the leaders that were part of that moved on, so we haven't been back in Rec Room since then. But we'll talk a little bit more detail about what led up to our transition into Rec Room, which is, by the way, just right off the bat, I think it's a fantastic platform. During the break, or at the intro, I mentioned it was a dark horse, and then during the break, Alice and Coldest were like, "What do you mean? Is that like the black sheep?" So we kind of talked about how dark horse is this unexpected winner. You just wouldn't have expected something from this platform to be the best, and frankly, I think it is the best metaverse platform out there. And I know that the term metaverse has all types of definitions and people are defining it in so many ways. But I'm simply talking about it from a VR social experience. That's fundamentally how I view the metaverse, through virtual reality, social interactions, worlds to explore, worlds to build. There's a whole idea of blockchain and crypto and all that around that. But right now, that's kind of how I'm defining it and how I look at it. I'm sure those blockchain things will come later. So we're going to talk about Rec Room. You know, it's really amazing. We'll talk about the really cool things about it, maybe the not so cool things about it, some of the challenges, some of the pros, how our transition has been as a church to move our main campus, which was in Microsoft's AltSpace all these years, over to Rec Room, and what's that been like. And I know some people and many churches that were involved in AltSpace perhaps are looking for a new platform. I think many went to big screen, which is like and by the way, this isn't a critical thing. It's just kind of like a question mark. I don't view big screen as a engaging platform, but I'm sure it could serve some purposes depending on your depending on your particular vision. So anyways, we'll talk about all that. And we'll do that after the sponsor break. Thank you to our sponsors, Digivangelism, as well as churchblock.io. We'll be right back.
If you find your faith community's online presence too confusing and time-consuming to manage alone, look no further than Digivangelism. Digi helps progressive leaders of spiritual communities share hope, healing, and light online through digital ministry consulting, website building, and education. They also have a new digital ministry training hub where you can access exclusive workshops, screen share walkthroughs of various online platforms, their entire digital communications review course, and space to ask experts questions for future videos. Visit digivangelism.org for a $7 all-access trial of the training hub and see how Digi can help you better share hope, healing, and light online. The pandemic has catapulted the church into a forward-thinking ministry. 10 years ago, churches were pondering whether they should have a YouTube page. Now, almost every church on the planet is live streaming via YouTube. The church is once again at the precipice of a new technological wave called blockchain. Blockchain is the underlying technology for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all other forms of digital currency. Millennials and Gen Z are adopting blockchain tech for everyday life, from investing, buying real estate, and even receiving payments for services. According to a report by Morning Consult, 57% of all crypto adopters are millennials and 13% are Gen Z. In light of these questions, ChurchBlock.io was created to provide answers. ChurchBlock is a customized solution for ministry leaders seeking answers and opportunities in this paradigm shift. Email info@churchblock.io for a free consultation or visit churchblock.io to learn more.
All right, welcome back. Thank you, Digi, as well as Church Block, for your sponsorships. Coldest analysis. Let's just jump head first. Let's just dive right into the topic of for our transition from AltSpace VR over to Rec Room, these metaverse platforms, these virtual reality social experiences. And just to give our listeners just a quick overview, VR Church was started in 2016 in AltSpace VR. At the time, it was just a startup company. It wasn't owned by anybody. It almost shut down because of lack of funding. And then Microsoft came in, bought it up, and kept it going for all these years. And we've had a great and amazing, just a beautiful journey, all the positive things you can think of about AltSpace VR. Not without its challenges and not without, things that we would have hoped would have been improved. But overall, it was just a solid entry into VR social experiences. It wasn't perfect. It had bugs, it had glitches, it had maybe some limiting technology. Oftentimes in my conversations with leaders or with individuals, I say that AltSpace might have been in that era of the Metaverse 2016 to 2023 was like the MySpace era of the Metaverse, something that had a vision of things to come, but wasn't quite exactly it. And so even in AltSpace, as amazing as it was to begin and to cultivate, it just wasn't the thing. And so, as a matter of fact, back in the fall of 2022, before AltSpace even announced they were shutting down, we started having conversations behind the scenes with our leaders saying, hey, do we put our energies into something that we believe has more of a future? We were just wondering about, if we're just going to be transparent throughout this podcast. We just didn't feel like AltSpace had a future back in the past year. The technology seemed limited. It didn't seem like it was moving forward. And I think that what was built was built at a time that perhaps didn't consider things that were coming in the future. So even as back as this past year before 2023, we were having the conversations and about should we switch over from AltSpace to Rec Room. And Rec Room really is the conversation today. And Alice is a Rec Room master. Coldest is one of the Rec Room builders, and we're going to kind of pick their brain about it. But I'm just giving a little prehistory kind of leading up to this point. And it was honestly a little bit of a back and forth between our leaders saying, man, we shouldn't leave AltSpace because it's, where our campus is, our main campus, our main experience. But it was also the same. We were kind of going back and forth because we also felt like we needed to move into Rec Room with more energy than we had there in the past, than we currently had. We didn't have a church in there. We kind of dabbled in dabbled in Rec Room. And so we had that conversation going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then ultimately, I think Microsoft made it easy for us to decide. When they announced it, we're like, oh yeah, here we go. Full Rec Room, like we were planning on, like we were intending to. And so we started to make that transition. And so we have a full podcast on the AltSpace closure. And so that's something you can go back and listen to. So we're not going to really revisit that much. We're just going to dive right into Rec Room. And one of the things I said earlier is I believe that Rec Room is one of the dark horses of the metaverse. They're a unique platform. I think they're very special. They seem to be a very innovative, always pushing the boundaries, not afraid to experiment and try new things. And like anything, there's pros and cons, but we're going to get into that now. And Alice, I'm curious to you. When was the first time you heard of Rec Room? Maybe you don't have to have the exact memory, but those first few times getting in there, and you're an artist, you're a world builder in the metaverse. You get into Rec Room, and as I would say, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, perhaps you discovered this is the best metaverse building experience. That's what, like, when I look at it, it is. But from your perspective, what was those initial experiences like of getting into it? What'd you think? And what's your perspective on Rec Room?
Yeah, so the first time I went into Rec Room, my perspective was very, very different to what it is now. So I actually had a different account quite a few years ago before I had the Quest 2, and that account's deleted somewhere. But I didn't like it because I got in and I got swarmed in the rec center, which is like the main public lobbies, by kids being inappropriate. So I just deleted it and didn't go back until I went in with a friend who showed me the ropes, showed me how to get outfits and everything like that. And then when I really started to enjoy building was when I first signed up for a class to do it. And that's where I met some of my close friends on Rec Room. And I was building on there about 3 a.m. in the morning. So,
3 a.m. You know what?
yeah.
Can I let me stop you there real quick because you brought up something that's very important to talk about, and that is like your first experience was a negative one, right? It's maybe
Yeah.
the Rec Room platform skews younger. There's probably a lot of like noisy kids running around. And you're like, I'm not going back in, and I wonder if that happens more often than we realize. People hear about the metaverse, they get a VR headset, they hear about VR church or whatever, they put on the headset, not just Rec Room, whether it's Allspace VR Chat or Allspace VR Chat or Rec Room, they go in, and undoubtedly there's a high percentage chance that your experience isn't going to be normal. It's going to be unusual, and
Yeah,
so
that is true.
yeah, you feel that like, and I
I do. I
wonder,
do.
if that is a there's a couple ways to look at it. One is if you're listening to this and you haven't tried the metaverse and you're going in, basing it off that first impression, I think is a mistake. So let me give you an example. First time I went to New York City, one of the biggest cities in America, and going in there was just overwhelming. The traffic, the noise, the vibe of New York, and so New York is a definitely New York City is definitely a destination. We want to go to Times Square. We want to eat at this restaurant. And once you've gotten through that initial New York in your face like reaction, you enjoy the space, right? You've learned, yeah, all right, I'm going to have to deal with traffic. Okay, here's a loud person on the corner. You know, you have to deal with parking and all these things. And then you get to your destination and you enjoy the food, the music, the nightlife of, New York City. And I feel like if we could borrow that and take it to the metaverse, I think there's the same thing. If you're going into Rec Room VR Chat and just popping in for a second, and you're just basing it off that initial impression, and you haven't gotten to your destination, I could see people just turning around, quote unquote. And so, anyways, I just wanted to stop on that point real quick, Alice, because it's interesting. As you are like pro Rec Room, that your first initial experience was a negative one. So just wanted to pop on that. Um, also, Coldest, like for you, kind of the same idea. What was your first impressions getting into the space?
I do share like the same story of just going into Rec Room, going into VR chat, going into Allspace, not knowing anything about it, and just going in and just find myself surrounded by little loud kids or absolutely crazy people, and that happens in VR in every platform. That does happen, but definitely, you can turn and look another way and try to find some different things. And especially, as Alice already said, going into the thing with like a friend who already knows a little bit about the thing and can show you, that is always a great idea. Definitely.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. Because same way, like I don't know that many of us, at least on the U.S. side, would go to New York by ourselves, right? We would go with people that have been there, that know where to park. nowhere to eat, all that. It's probably our first time in New York is with some type of assistance, whether in person or at least through, written guides or something like that. And so, same way, to be able to maybe go with a friend, at least to get a guide to get through the initial traffic and noise and into your destination to really explore, the city. Because I think just like any experience, your first impression is going to be a turnoff because there's just a lot going on. And so, Alice, let's talk about Rec Room in the sense of why is it different, or why is it different from Altspace and VR Chat? What makes it unique? And we'll talk about the cons in a second, but let's just talk about Rec Room's uniqueness.
Well, there's lots of things, I guess, that make it unique. One thing that would differentiate it from VR chat is the avatars, and the same with how Altspace was. All the items you collect, you build your avatar over time, and you win items from games and things like that. So there's that gameplay element, and there's kind of the creative community is really big on there, which I didn't see much of it on Altspace. It was a lot more business orientated in terms of creating worlds, a lot more event based, whereas Rec Room is more kind of creative based and then play based. So like play and creativity in terms of what forms communities. But
Yeah, that's where I feel like Altspace, or excuse me, I feel like Rec Room was head and shoulders above Altspace. It was like built for games, and maybe that was their first kind of like focus, which I think made it better than Altspace, so to speak, because there was like purpose going into it. Not that Altspace wasn't great, but it wasn't designed to do anything but be in the same room together, But in Rec Room, the design was like, let's go play games. And so it was designed, and the games are really well polished. And so the experience of that, I think, creates a Rec Room in a very unique way. And so, yeah, built for games. You can go bowling, paintballing. And I've been trying to tell church leaders, like, you think about having your own paintball facility, your own laser tag facility. Can you imagine in the physical world being able to have a bowling alley and a paintball and all these things? But in the metaverse, you can. Your youth group, your church can have these amazing facilities inside the metaverse. And so I think that's particularly unique. And then what's definitely head and shoulders above Rec Room, that's above Altspace, is world building. Now, in Altspace, don't get me wrong, there's some amazing world builds. But you could tell there is a limit to that. So, Alice, Coldest, you guys are involved in world building in Rec Room. So, tell me a little bit about your experience with Rec Room. My perception is it's more difficult, but also more tools and resources and unlimited, so to speak. And so, I want to hear from both of you about world building. Alice first, and then Coldest.
yeah, well, yeah, it's definitely a lot more complex. But with that complexity comes more uniqueness. You can create everything how you'd want it from the ground up, basically, and you have to. And there's kind of game and programming elements within the game rather than having to bring something in. So you can design everything you want within the game itself. Unlike with VR chat, where you'd have a Unity project and you'd have to learn Unity and everything to bring that in. So it's kind of less complicated than that in a way, even though Rec Room are bringing Unity into it as an additional element. Everything you'd need is in game, and there are limits, but they're always really pushing the limits and expanding and trying to make it so we can do more and more and more without completely crashing the headsets of everybody.
Yeah, and I like how, and at least and again, I'm a novice when it comes to building, but my perception is in Altspace it was a very static building experience. We place something and that's it. It seems like in Rec Room there's with animation, with circuitry, we can just do a lot of creative things. We can move worlds, we can create unique experiences that we couldn't wire into the Altspace. We couldn't use circuits. We couldn't build buttons or animations. And so I think The worlds in Rec Room seems to be more alive, so to speak. Coldest, you're getting into building. What's your kind of view on Rec Room build?
Yes, first of all, let me clarify. I am also pretty novice, pretty amateur, pretty new to the building experience. But it is fun indeed. And I completely agree with what you said about the old space. It definitely feels more static or felt more static than Rec Room. And also with VR chat, I guess in VR chat you are like capable of doing like anything because at the end of the day you're using Unity. And in Unity you can build like whatever thing. But still in Rec Room, as Alice already said, every single tool you need is already in game. You don't need to be like a master at Unity. You don't need to know 3D modeling. Everything is already there. And yeah, it can feel less powerful than VR chat. Yeah, okay, absolutely. But it is funnier, simpler, and it also like the ink system, which is ink is what the Rec Room uses to limit the quantity of stuff you can put in a single word. That system kind of guarantees like one single world is gonna work in Quest standalone in PCVR. It's usually not gonna be anything super crazy or fancy, and that is good because we can do whatever thing in whatever device. And with VR chat, I mean, in VR chat, if you go with the Quest standalone, you are pretty limited, and that doesn't happen on Rec Room. So I am absolutely loving it. It's what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah, no. And I agree with your assessment that VR chat could be more sophisticated in world building, but the world building is going to be outside of the platform. It's going to be done in Unity, Blender, whatever people do to make that happen in VR chat. So yes, I guess there's a side to it where VR chat could be better, quote unquote. But what I feel like makes Rec Room better, again with quotes, is the in-world building and circuitry and the games and all of it put together seems to be more unique. And so I guess it's tough to compare them because it's not apples for apples, but Rec Room and VR Chat tend to have their own unique space in the metaverse. I don't see them as competitors. I feel like VR Chat is on a league of its own, and I feel like Rec Room is on a league of its own to the degree that Rec Room is similar to Altspace is similar to Horizons, but better than Horizons and Altspace. And a quick question for both of you, like people ask VR Church all the time, how come you guys are not in Horizons? And I'll give my answer, then you guys can chime in what you think. When I say Horizons, I'm talking about metas of VR social experience. While it's cool, it's just not something that Rec Room can't do better at this point. What do you guys view, or do you agree or disagree with that point concerning Horizons? Where it just doesn't seem like our community is passionate about getting into Horizons. We really like Rec Room and VR Chat, and that seems to cover all the bases for us. And Horizons doesn't seem to bring anything new to the experience.
yeah, I agree, and I actually my opinion about Horizons is what it is. But the thing is, I could sit here and talk about how Meta is such an evil company, or or about many things. But I just think Horizons is not there. Feels like an alpha project, like a work in progress. And I have seen people trying to do like events and things on Horizons, and just the mic's not even working, so you can't even talk to the people. And I mean, if you can guarantee that that is no platform to be hosting such a thing, I am super sorry to be saying this, but I really feel it is
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, no. I think it's important to this podcast for ourselves and for our listeners to be authentic, to not be not hide behind interest, special interest. So what I mean by that for me is I do have a relationship with Meta, and we do Metaverse stuff, and have gotten paid by them in the past. But that doesn't stop me from saying that there are better platforms than Horizons. I'll be upfront in saying that even with my relationship with Meta, I think they have the best VR headset. So if we wanted to come around and be like, okay, DJ, are you dogging, the people you have a relationship with? No, it's just an honest evaluation. If as a I'm not an official consultant, but as a consultant in the past, if you want my honest opinion, yeah, Horizons is lacking. There are better experiences in Rec Room VR chat, but also you guys have the best headset. Meta does. The Quest 2, the Quest 3 is going to be fantastic. I have no doubt about that. And so there's the hardware and then the software side of it, and I think they're killing it on the hardware, no doubt. Very
Yeah.
innovative, doing a fantastic job. Software side, not so much, and that's where they definitely need to pick up their competitiveness, their uniqueness, and I just feel like Rec Room and VR Chat is all that we need at this point from a social VR standpoint. And but Alice, I'm sure you popped in Horizons. What was
Oh
your thought
yeah.
about that?
So I did pop in Horizons eventually, but my initial thought, even before I got into the platform, was that I didn't like the fact that they kind of released it to the US and Canada first, and then they made other countries wait ages and ages and ages to first get in there. So it kind of became this exclusive club, and when I did eventually get in there, there wasn't very much diversity compared to other platforms in terms of the people there. It was all kind of a lot of just white, very English speaking Americans, which no hate against anybody like that, because you are who you are. But everyone kind of being the same. Whereas if I'm on another platform, I can kind of be in a room and have somebody from every single country and every single background, and
Yeah,
instead of just like a little pocket of the world. And it
right.
wasn't, yeah. And it was only available on the Quest, so that's a bit annoying as well, even before you get into what kind of platform it is. Whereas Rec Room's
Yeah.
like available on everything.
Yeah, and that's a good point to make here to emphasize to the listeners. Rec Room
Uh,
is available everywhere. All VR headsets, Steam, Oculus. You're talking about your iPhone, smartphone access, a PlayStation, Xbox consoles. That's crazy. And so when you think of all the access that Rec Room provides, and then some of these other platforms, let's just take, we're not trying to pick on Meta, but let's just take Horizons. It's only available on the Quest 2. That's very limiting. And so it's just not an attractive platform to that degree. I think if it had more access, we'd probably might have a different conversation. But and I think it's also good to stop because earlier on I talked about big screen, kind of questioning that as a place to play in a church and social VR, and we question Horizons, and I guess it's a good point to say that's just for us as VR MMO church. What our particular vision and our particular experience that we enjoy tends to be in more Rec Room and VR chat. And so for you, maybe Horizons works, so definitely go for that. Maybe a big screen is what works for you. And so for your experience, maybe that is what you need to connect with. But for VR MMO Church, we tend to favor the Rec Room and VR chat, not so much the Horizon big screen. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future. We'll be right back. Thanks to our sponsors, Digivangelism and ChurchBlock.io.
Digi helps progressive leaders of spiritual communities share hope, healing, and light online through digital ministry consulting, website building, and education. ChurchBlock.io is providing blockchain solutions for the church. Visit ChurchBlock.io to learn more.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about Rec Room, the dark horse of the metaverse, and we're talking about our experience as a church in Rec Room. And Allison Cole is going to dive into what's currently happening in the space. What are we building? What are we doing? What's the impact been on our congregation? I think that it's been a bit of a learning curve for people to get into Rec Room because there's one negative thing about it is it does seem to have a lot, like the menu system is very involved. It does take a while just to kind of get used to it all. Let's say if you're used to just alt space, which is a little bit cleaner, not necessarily perfect, but a little more simple in its presentation and execution. And then when we come over to Rec Room, it's like, whoa, there's so much to kind of interact with. So, and that's part of like Rec Room's ability to like be creative and expansive. And so there's a kind of a trade off to that. So I think for some, it was kind of a little bit of a hurdle. We were trying to encourage people like get through that hurdle because you will enjoy it. Get through the like again, not trying to, beat a dead horse about New York City, but get through the traffic, get through the parking and all the noise and the chaos because ultimately there's a destination to be had. So in the same way with Rec Room, we're trying to encourage people to get through those hurdles, get through all whatever their initial impressions are to get into the deep side, and that's really where I've heard at least a couple of times people go, "Oh, this is actually pretty cool." So you got the light bulb moment of getting through those initial hurdles and being like, "Oh, I get this. Oh, this is fun. Oh, I see why we're here." And so for those that have made it past all of that, I think they're enjoying it. But Alice and Coldest, tell us about what's going on in Rec Room right now. What are we building? What are we doing? What are some unique things you've implemented? How do you see the community responding to Rec Room? Just your general thoughts. Alice first, and then Coldest.
General thoughts. I mean, it's been a positive one in terms of what's being built and things in there. We meet in a central clubhouse and then go to another location. So even if people are kind of rushing around, there's always that central base to go and meet at, which is one of the things we can do. And another thing people can do is they can go and visit the worlds if they wanted to while we're not here. Whereas in alt space that was a bit harder because there was no search system. So one of the things that adds to the UI, you can search for rooms and go to experiences without anybody being in the room. You can just search for a room, and there's so many, and you can do that as a group, which is different to alt space was obviously. And then I'm just really enjoying doing the world builds and the implementation of community hours. I think that's been really important, both with some of the games that Simeon has been creating some experiences with circuitry for us, and so that flip between games and then a taught sermon I think has been really good for both the teaching team and the community itself because they're getting to know each other. It takes a bit of pressure off those teachers and us as world builders, but as well. I mean, just generalizations.
No, yeah, no, just yeah, we just wanted some perspective on it. And Alice alluded to community Sundays, so we have a new format we're experimenting with that we actually I enjoy, and we haven't done like maybe a survey to see how people are what they think about our new format. So every other week we change the format. So first and third Sundays at VR Church are sermon Sundays. So those focus on Bible teaching. We come in, we're gathering, we're focusing on learning from Scripture. The second and fourth Sundays are focused on communities. We call them Community Sundays. We're going to gather together. We're going to connect. We're going to perhaps even serve the community, like Rust. The Rust Church one time went around, handing out materials for players who needed to craft or who needed to, get ready for the wipe day, for a PvP wipe day. And so that's how our format's been going. And at first there was maybe a couple of rumblings. Oh, I don't like this. We should be teaching every week. But I think, in my perspective at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alice or Coldest, is the reaction seems to be this is positive. Oh, we get to connect more than we have in the past because time is limited. As much as we would love to, do Bible teaching every week or every day and have community hours every week or every day, time is limited. We're all involved in school, work, family, all these other things. And so I think this new format's serving us well. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about, Alice's when she alluded to community hours. But Coldest, how's your experience been in Rec Room recently, and what do you think about it?
It's been surprisingly fun. I didn't. To be completely honest, I didn't have many expectations when Altspace shut off and we pretty much had to move. I have, at that point, I had tried Rec Room before, but I didn't really delve into it. And the more time I'm spending into the thing, I am enjoying it more and more. The building is like amazing. Some of the worlds are super cool too and super fun. And yeah, it has its flaws, obviously. Like the little kids are one of them. But the whole platform, it's pretty fun, and I honestly think it is way better than Altspace.
Yeah, I think there's, yeah, I agree with that assessment as well. And it's definitely fun. It's definitely cool. World building, the games, and people just need to check it out to experiment, explore all that it has to offer. And yeah, Rec Room is very unique. And our mission hasn't changed, even though our platform has. Mission still remains the same, and that's to cultivate these loving spiritual communities across the metaverse. That's our goal and our vision, where people from all walks of life feel safe and feel comfortable to come in, to connect, to explore their faith, to grow in it, and to experience faith in a new way, like with these world builds. That's such a unique way where we connect scripture and spirituality with individuals. And it really enhances our faith. We think about in the past, as Bible teaching when it arrives on radio or perhaps on television, how it enhanced the listener or the viewer. These smartphone apps that delivered the Bible to your phone, how that's enhanced people's spirituality. And so, in the same way, we're going through a new renaissance where the metaverse is enhancing people's faith and they're growing and they're experiencing things in new ways. And so that's what we're going to continue to do, even though the platform has changed. And we're going to continue to dive into Rec Room. And let's take some final thoughts here. I'm going to give my final assessment about the future, because we talked about where we've been, we're talking about where we are right now, and let's talk about like the future prospects. What do we think about VR Church? And there's no right or wrong answer because obviously we don't know the future. But where do you see us going when it comes to Rec Room or other platforms? And with Rec Room, particularly the influence of Rec Room and the future of our religious experience, our spiritual experience, and any specific goals or visions perhaps that you have, Alice, about the future of Rec Room. But for me, just kind of looking towards the future, I think that what we said earlier about Rec Room being the dark horse of the metaverse is this idea that the best of the metaverse is probably going to be Rec Room or something similar to it. I think VR chat's great. I just don't know that they have a good handle on moderation and hacking. And I know Rec Room, has their hacking issue, but VR chat from a user perspective seems to be not ready for the masses. It's a fantastic experience, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I love VR chat. It's so unique. There's nothing like it. You go in there and you experience these avatars in these worlds. But from a stability and mass adoption standpoint, VR chat has a ways to go. Obviously, Altspace has closed their doors. Horizons is trying to build, and I think that's why I say Rec Room is the dark horse. It is kind of like unexpected. They're not coming from Google. They're not coming from Meta. They're not coming from a big technological company. They arrived up, and they are just such a unique and special platform. And I think to some degree, and I don't know exactly what this means, but they're future proof. Like they've built themselves to last a long time. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to is for me and the future of VR Church and Rec Room is to continue in Rec Room and to go on the journey with the platform and to see where it takes us. But that's just my thoughts. Alice and Cole, disagree or disagree, or give us some perspective on where we're going and what you think about Rec Room in the future and all that. Alice first, Coldest next.
Yeah, I mean, I see it going for a while. Obviously, everything has its end, but I can't really see it in the near future. But I think the experiences that are going to get bigger and more animate and just something unique like we've not experienced on other platforms before. Just because of the capabilities are getting better and better and more advanced. Just the things that we can do there as we learn and grow. And I think There's going to be people there who maybe hate church or don't like church at all coming along to the experiences just because they're cool experiences to have. And then they're going to be learning and finding community where people love having them around and everything. So I think that's kind of where the community's going on there.
Hmm, that's good. Coldest, what are your thoughts?
I pretty much agree. I think I need to add that VR chat is definitely harder to navigate. There are way more things, and those things are harder to reach and to understand than in Rec Room, definitely. So at the end of the day, for your regular guy, I think your regular guy is gonna feel more comfortable in Rec Room most times, I would assume. And so this, as in many other cases, I think it creates a difference between the type of people you are bound to expect to find in Rec Room and the type of people you are expecting to find in VR chat. And as such, the people attending are gonna be different, and the experience at the end of the day is gonna feel a little bit different, and that is completely okay. Because you mentioned Rusty Charts before, and that is exactly what I am doing with Rusty Charts. It is definitely the most casual experience, and I am rolling with that. I need to embrace that. The platform is begging for me to do the thing in a very casual way. That is completely okay. And the thing is, maybe it's not like the thing you are looking for, and if it's not, just try another platform. I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It does make sense. And yeah, I agree with your assessment about VR chat. And it's a little more complicated in many different ways. And yeah, they definitely need to, if they want to keep up, if they want to have that longevity that Rec Room does, they need to up their game as far as moderation, security, stability, all those types of things. Because
Yeah,
it's a
definitely.
platform where, sure, we could have that, we could have a hacker come in Rec Room, but I feel like in VR chat, we will have a hacker. We might in Rec Room, but we will in VR chat. And there's like such a
Yeah.
difference. Now, and we're used to it. We're used to hackers, trolls, all that stuff. We kind of just been rolling with that for years. But so as a metaverse church, that's normal for us. I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective of an outsider coming in, like a church that's like, all right, let's get a metaverse campus going, and they step into the world of VR chat, and their eyes are huge like saucers. Like, what is happening? Bart Simpson, walks by, and then all the PG-13 plus elements that are just kind of rolling around there. But so in the past, I've told people, "Hey, check out Altspace. Let that be your first metaverse experience." But now it's Rec Room. Definitely need to go in there first, check it out, get used to it, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And the accessibility, again, to repeat this, the accessibility of Rec Room. You might not have a VR headset, but you have a smartphone, you have a console, you have a PC 2D version. You're good to go. There's no limit. There's no excluding anyone from the experience. So that's something to keep in mind. Any final thoughts about anything Rec Room you got in your brain? You're dying to let people know. Alice, you'll go first. Coldest, you'll go second. I'll give my final thoughts. It's just, and it's really anything. I just really enjoy the games of Rec Room. Paintball, they're unique. Laser tag, co-op, maybe not story driven, but story experiences. I think it's a lot of fun. You can just go into Rec Room and just kind of do anything you want to do. Hang out, play, go bowling. I think it's a great platform, and yeah, that's my thoughts about it. But Alice and Coldest, what do you think? Any final thoughts before we head out?
I really like Rec Room. Not I can't always put into words why I like it, but once I've been there and spent time with the people and the platform, there is kind of a warmness towards it that I can't really describe in a logical sense, but it's something you need to go and experience to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think I just want to say, I just want to recommend to everybody to take your time and experience things slowly because you can get overwhelmed really easily. So take your time, it's completely okay. Do your thing, check, click on the buttons, whatever, and try to discover everything and enjoy yourself.
Oh, that's beautiful advice, and we'll leave everyone with that wisdom and knowledge. Thanks, Alice and Coldest, for hanging out today, giving us an update on what's going on with our church and rec room. And thank you to our sponsors, Digivangelism and churchblock.io. And we're going to be back soon. I believe, and I know our podcast schedule can change, but Alice, we're going to delve into your story, the future queen of hell, and that's going to be fun. Looking forward to connecting with that. I think Alina is on a mini vacation. Pastor Alina is, and so she'll be back. We'll get the whole crew together, and we'll reminisce a little bit, catch up, and then delve into Alice's story. That'll be fun. So stay tuned for that. Thanks everybody for watching. See you later, Alice. See you, Coldest.
Thank you.
Thanks for
See
hanging
you in a
out.
few hours. Yeah.
Yes, see you in a few
Yeah.
hours.
See you in a
See you,
jiffy.
Boys.
All right. See you, boys. All right, take care, everybody.
Bye.
Gon' see success in me, you ain't seen the rest. I just wanna be the best at what I know, better than the rest, just watch me grow. Put me to the test and watch me go. This is my quest, I'ma make it known.